And hello, everyone. And right about now, everyone is saying, but that is not Coach Elec's opening. That's okay. That's Stephen the Medium's opening. But today, you get to have both of us. But today's Get a Grip with Coach Elec. So, hello, welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elec. I am your host, Coach Elec. And with me, my amazing co host who got this amazing opening just for you.
Howdy. Stephen Frederick is here.
Steven, the medium, is in the house. So sorry to disappoint you, but Steven is not gonna be taking calls. But you can make an appointment with Steven. How about that?
No disappointment. No one's disappointed. They love your show.
I'm sure there's plenty of people who would love to be calling and speaking to you, but they're going to be listening to us, and that's not a bad. That is actually quite a good thing. Stephen, today's show, it's the meaning behind traditions, and this is a subject that you wanted to talk about, so I'm excited to have that conversation. But before we get into the show, into traditions, into what it is that they mean and why it is that we hold them, and the good, the bad, and not necessarily, sometimes they're not so good about traditions and why they hold us back. Before we get into any of that, how are you? What's going on? Happy Easter. What are you planning over the weekend?
Well, you're talking like I'm by myself. I'm single. What are you planning?
Well, I'm
yeah,
just,
you know what? I'm going to go up to my grandparents' house, up in the lake in New Hampshire, and we go fishing. We have a good time there. Catch a lot of big mouth bass.
I'm asking the questions that our listeners are probably asking. So
They are?
I know what we're doing, but just curious. I know what our producer Dave is doing. He's going to Wright's chicken farm.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I'm a little jealous. We haven't been there in a long time. This is. I'm always excited when it's the weekend, right? So it's good.
Me too.
I went this morning out to do a normal, usual run in the back in the conservation land, and I sent you a video, and I actually posted it that I had 4 deer. Not that far away from me, just sort of like running mates, just running with me, which was so cool. Listen, for me, I'm in heaven when I can go and I can exercise. I did just under 5 miles, and I see nobody except animals and nature. I'm very happy with that. Very.
If you haven't seen that reel, you got to check it out because it is absolutely beautiful. And I don't know, Stephen. So I'm if I'm wrong, please don't judge. But I believe that the female deer have that white cottontail, and the male do not. Maybe it's the other way around, but they are beautiful. And it was like 4 of them, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's an interesting question. I'm sure there's way more well-versed people that understand and know who has what. I don't know. All I know is that I love looking at them, and especially when they're running away and all you see is their white bums, and they're bright white. But these 4 were really having a great time. And as a matter of fact, I was done my run, but one of them, when I was walking up this path, which was just in my sight, he the way he was staring at me, his head was a little past a tree so that he could see me, and he's just looking at me. So of course I just stopped and I was looking back at him, but I mean there was no urgency. He just turned around and then just started going the opposite way, and of course I saw the little white rear end, and then one after another. I think there were 4 of them that just followed him or her, and yeah, they just went on their way. So it's good. It's beautiful, right?
But you do talk to them, right? You
Of course.
mentally you talk to them. So
Yeah. I mean, I do. I actually had one. I don't know, 2 years ago maybe now. That and I videoed this. He was following me, It's the coolest video. I should like pull that up and repost it because it was just I don't even think I was running. I think I had already ran, and you know how much time I spent back there. I went out just to walk and be out there and meditate, and I was coming back around the cranberry bog, and I saw a deer, and he was following me, and like when I stopped and looked at him, he stopped and just stared at me. And then when I turned and started walking, he started walking toward, like, following me. And every time I stopped and turned around, he stopped. So I started videoing it, and it was the coolest thing.
That is so awesome. By the way, Stephen, I do want to do a shout out to Dennis, our friend Marie and Dennis. They're probably listening together, I'm assuming. So shout out to both of them who are back from Florida. They're good friends, and Dennis, we're sending you lots of love and healing energy.
Hey, Marie, and hello, Dennis. Yes.
So what else is going on, Stephen? What else are we up to?
Well, you know what? When you talked about Marie and Dennis, I gotta ask them. I keep saying to you, I gotta reach out to both of them to see how their orchids are doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm afraid to ask because they've been out for so long, and if they don't have somebody like the way you take care of your orchid, which, by the way, you should post a picture of that as well, Stephen, because it is. I've never seen somebody or an orchid that has flowers so many times, and this orchid has flower how many? 4 or 5 times?
No, I think this is the fourth time, but with 2 stems, which is just crazy. Like at the same time, yeah. I've taken a picture, so I will definitely post that at some point. It's just beautiful. You know, the great thing about orchids that those flowers come, they're beautiful, but they last, like, it seems like forever. They just there, like unlike any other like flowering bush or tree. That, you know, like the magnolias that here up in New England, the pink magnolias that are gorgeous, that last 10 seconds. They bloom, they open, you sneeze, and the whole tree's down. It's all done, and it's all over the ground, and they last 10 seconds, and they're gorgeous. So those are one of my favorite trees, but it's sad that those little blossoms or those flowers don't last longer.
Yeah, but that's a reminder that you know what we have is just the moment. So whatever that is, however long they last, we just need to pause and really be present and enjoy it.
That is true.
But Stephen, now talking about magnolias, can you tell people the crazy story? So you people need to know, who I'm really married to. This is a crazy person. So tell them what happened.
You're talking about me?
Yeah, like you the other day, yesterday, he says, "Oh, you look at the cameras." I'm like, the cameras? Yeah, just look at the front porch.
Well, I knew you were going to see it, so that's why I sort of wanted to beat you to the punch, if you will.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm looking in the only entry, because it's when there's activity, is 3:30 a.m. or 3 a.m. I'm like, what? Yeah, tell them. And there, all of a sudden, I see Stephen coming out of the porch at 3 a.m. in the morning. Tell them why you got, because they need to know, how nuts you are.
All right, listen, for anybody who lives here in New England, especially like Rhode Island and Massachusetts, most of us were slammed with that last snowstorm. Like the jackpots were like close to 40 inches, right? So, Dave, our producer, knows all about it, and the guys all know about it because, they're in that area and they were in the jackpot. So because there was so much snow, even down here in the Cape, I think we ended up getting like 15 inches or so, which is a lot for Cape Cod. The plows come, the company that we have, and they come, and there was just so much snow, trying to figure out where to put it. So that whole process is done. It's, they plow and we're all good. So a couple of nights ago, I woke up because I had a dream that I saw the plow coming up the driveway, and I have an umbrella magnolia tree, which is I post every year. I will post again this year in June when it blooms. It's just gorgeous. I
It is
love it.
gorgeous.
I take care of
Absolutely.
it, and it's it's skinny, but it's tall. I don't know, 10 feet, 12. No, it's got to be more than 12 feet.
Oh
In
my
any
God.
case,
Get to the story. Get to the 3 a.m. in the morning.
oh, I feel so much pressure right now. Like really, like I think I'm breaking out in hives right now. So in any case, I had a dream that a plow was coming up and went right over the magnolia tree because it's a little like it's a skinny tree, and I like woke up. I'm like, oh my god, is it possible that no, all the snow's gone, but is it possible I just have not noticed where it usually is? And I could not sleep because I love that tree so much that I got up. Elix, I mean, you didn't wake up. Django didn't wake up. Nobody woke up except me. So I have to, leave, go downstairs. I have to shut the alarm off before I go downstairs, or the sensor, excuse me, will set the alarm off. So I do, and then I go to put the spotlight on in the driveway, and I go out in the porch, mind you, with underwear and a t-shirt on, as you
Oh
see
yeah.
on the camera, and I
Yes, I did.
cut across through the front porch to look to see, and I'm like, oh, thank God, it's still there. And then I just closed the door, put the alarm back on, and went right back to bed.
Yeah. And my first reaction, because again, I hadn't noticed. I didn't even hear him get up in the morning, so I had no idea. Now, had I seen this without this explanation, I would have been worried. Like, oh my God, he must have heard someone. He heard some noise. He thought somebody was breaking in, and he went out. Oh no, he he literally went out
That's
to
me.
confirm whether the tree was still up or not.
Well, because it's not like I don't know if anyone's ever seen an umbrella magnolia tree. It is really, really skinny. Like if the plow hit it, it really it would knock it down. It would just completely crush it. It would kill it. So it's not like this big tree that if the plow hits, the tree's not gonna necessarily not get knocked down. So yeah, I got very concerned and thought, oh my God, maybe as much as I'm in and out of the driveway and I'm just it's gone. So it's gone from my whole vision, my perception, and I couldn't sleep. I had to get up but the good thing is I came back in to bed. No one knew. No one even knew I got up, and I went back to bed. So
Yeah.
so
So
good.
there you have it, people. This is Stephen the Medium, Stephen
Yes.
F. Masek, the attorney, my husband. He is brilliant, but sometimes
Crazy.
he's a little crazy, just a
Yeah.
little crazy. Another shout out, Stephen. Eva Milagros is listening.
Eva
So we want to
Milagros.
do a shout out. Eva
Hola.
Milagros is my cousin from Puerto Rico, and she literally is the cousin that whenever we travel and we need support, she hops on a plane and comes take care of our baby boy Django
Well, we always
in the
always
house.
spend time with her and family.
Of
Her
course,
family in when we go to Puerto Rico. So
that is right.
we
So
love Eva Milagros.
we love Eva Milagro. So, but you know what we need to love? We need to love taking a commercial break so that when we come back, we are going to talk about the meaning behind traditions, the rituals, the habits, the practices that get passed down through families, cultures, and generations. So, we're going to take a break. We will be right back. And hello, everyone. Welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my amazing co-host,
Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium. And just like that, we have the correct song for the show. So thank you, Dave, for fixing that. And today we are talking about traditions. And traditions can be comforting. They create connection. They remind us where we come from. They can bring families together. They create meaning during holidays and often continuity in a world that is constantly changes. But traditions can also raise plenty of questions. Why do we hold them? Where do they come from? And perhaps more importantly, why do we continue them? Because they still serve us, or simply because they're just familiar? They become a routine. Some traditions may bring lots of joy, belonging, and identity. Others may carry expectations, pressure, or even pain. So today, my amazing husband, Stephen the Medium, who is the person who thought about this conversation, we're exploring traditions from both perspectives, what they give us, what they asked of us, and how we can consciously choose the traditions that we want to carry forward. So with that said, Stephen, I wanted to ask you a question like, why do you feel, first and foremost, this is a conversation that is a conversation that it's important, that brings a lot of value. But I also curious, like, what is one tradition that has deeply shaped who you are today?
Well, to answer your first question, I think that this subject is important because so many people have traditions, and so many people either have traditions that they've taken over from, other generations, parents or grandparents, or just started a particular tradition. Sometimes what I love is a tradition will come out of nowhere. Like you may be with somebody and do something, and someone may just come out with, you know what, this was like the best day. I think this should be a tradition. And like, and you just, then every year you do it, or however it works. So I think that's why I thought it was a really good subject, because so many people do it. And, it's interesting, the second part of that question you asked me about, like what tradition has either been around me or helped me, or however you just phrased it.
Has shaped who you are today.
Okay, shaped who I am. One thing that you will definitely know, that probably you're not going to be surprised why I'm going to use this as an example, is La Salette Shrine. So when I was a little boy, my family, like the extended family, my mom and her three sisters, and so every Thanksgiving, unlike most people, because this another piece of the puzzle with me, right? Like, unlike most families and people, we always went out on Thanksgiving. So Christmas was always, at one of the four sisters' house. It rotated, but Thanksgiving was always out. And we picked, well, they picked, because I was a kid. The grown-ups picked different places. It went from these very elegant, beautiful restaurants to like the traditional, well-known, like Venus de Milo. And I know if you're not around here, you're not going to know what that is, but it's just a restaurant that is very well known. To one year, Elix, as you know, that we did Thanksgiving at a horse track. Yes, we did. The whole family, they had a Thanksgiving dinner there, and none of us were big gamblers at all. Well, some of my aunts really were, but in any case, that's what we did. But at the end of whatever dinner we did for Thanksgiving, we always went to La Salette Shrine, which is a place in Attleboro, Massachusetts. And, of course, I grew up in Rhode Island, so we would just drive there, which was really close. And it's like thousands and thousands of Christmas lights. And Thanksgiving night is the premiere of the holiday season for La Salette Shrine. That's when the lights go on, and it's beautiful. They have usually have a carriage ride, and this beautiful gift shop. As a matter of fact, when I was going there when I was young, it was in a different place, and it was a much smaller gift shop than it is, and a whole display of these mangers, and it's really nice. That started every single Thanksgiving night, and I was actually the only one, and maybe it's because, some of, my brother, my cousin moved away, but I was hell bent on every Thanksgiving night. This is where I got to go. This was the tradition, and this is what I have to do. And for many, many years, I did it, and it definitely shaped me in the sense of feeling like I was connected to my family, even though for years, many of them, almost all of them, were still living, right? But I still did it. I felt proud of myself that I was holding the torch. It was passed to me. Don't worry, everybody. I got this. So I'm going to go to La Salette Shrine every Thanksgiving night, to the degree of like, Elix figured this out or found out, because we would do that. But all my friends would know. Oh, they wouldn't even ask, did you go to La Salette Thanksgiving night? It was a given. I was going to La Salette every single Thanksgiving night. And, it really, it made me feel good. But one of the things, Elix, you mentioned in sort of like the intro to traditions is, traditions can amplify, I think, joy, or they can also amplify pain. But when you get into that joy of like being very, like having blinders on, like there's nothing else that matters except the tradition. And that was me. I had to go Thanksgiving night. And when we moved down to the Cape, I think the first year, I never really thought about you're cooking all day, even prior to that day, and then I expect, I'm good. I didn't do the cooking all day. I didn't even think about it. We're going to La Salette Shrine, and you, just because of who you are, just went. And I know we had a conversation about it, and it was a reality check of thinking, wait a minute. This I lost sight of why I was doing this tradition. It used to be to just like to feel like I was holding the tradition for the family, but then it got to a place of, regardless of who's around me, regardless of how they're feeling, I have to go to La Salette Shrine. And when you get to that place, it's when it starts sort of not being a positive thing, if you will. So the last couple of years, we haven't gone to La Salette Shrine Thanksgiving night, and surprisingly, my head didn't spin and fall off. I'm still here, right?
And it's interesting because you said, I don't know if you noticed, Elix, about that tradition that I carry, from my family. And I was about to say I wanted you to finish. How could I have not noticed? I had no choice in the matter. And I think what you share also sort of highlights or exemplifies the other side, because sometimes, in your case, that tradition was very meaningful. And you were, as you described it, hell-bent in holding that tradition. So for me, first of all, I didn't think I had a choice. I realized, of course, I do have a choice, but I wanted to support you. I wanted to continue on doing something because I knew it was meaningful for you. Having said that, it came at a great cost because, as Stephen says, often Thanksgiving, we're hosting. I'm the one spending hours and hours and hours in the kitchen. And then I would have to go to La Salette, even though I was exhausted. So it was, I'm not saying I wouldn't blame you for it, because at the end of the day, I'm responsible. But I think that's a good way to sort of like highlight both the positive of a tradition, but also the negative. And sometimes how, if you're not really paying attention, how that tradition, doing something because you have to, right, can actually hurt not only yourself, but those around you. And for me, Stephen, go ahead. Go ahead. No,
I was just going to say, I mean, that tradition also came from, and why I was just, as I mentioned, I had to go because, like, everyone in my head, I was like, well, this is something that I can keep going, that the family no longer is doing, but I can keep the tradition going. And I think so much of it had to do with my upbringing, about losing my dad taking his life when I was 8 years old, and never feeling good enough. So I felt like this is one thing that I can do to sort of make everybody proud of me and just make sure that I keep it going. And that's every year. I lost sight of why I was doing it, and that's and then that you become so focused, and again, you've got blinders on. I can't see anything else except it's Thanksgiving night, and I have to be to La Salette Shrine. You
Yes.
know.
And again, that I think that conversation that you and I had, because when you acknowledged it and you asked me, you know what, we don't have to. I know you're tired. And I had the opportunity to say, you know what, I am tired and I'd rather not go tonight. We can go any other time. What that opened up for me, Stephen, was my own attachment to traditions, just simply because that's just what we do. In discovering, because that for me just opened up how many other things I did out of tradition, not because I had to, but simply because it was a tradition, just because. And underneath that, there was no love for doing what I call the tradition. There was certainly no joy for doing what I call the tradition. And in fact, lots of stress
Mm-hmm.
because, I was putting myself in a situation, and this is work in progress, by the way, for me, it's again, is putting somebody else before me. And that comes with a really significant cost. And
And you know
yeah,
what,
go
Elix,
ahead.
and I think, and it's the opposite for me. And I'm also a work in progress. I was everything doesn't matter except me and what I'm doing, and that's just the way. Again, coming from that trauma, and it's a work in progress. But I'll tell you, when you're the one that thankfully mentioned something to me about, I worked, I've been cooking for blah blah blah, and it just, when it hit me, it was like those blinders came off, and I thought, oh my God, how can I be so stupid? Like, how can I not think of what you've just done? I mean, for us, and whether we had people over or not for Thanksgiving, and just focus on this crazy I've got to be at La Salette Shrine with no regards to anything else. So it was definitely, it's amazing how we just get on sort of that journey or that path, and we see nothing else except that. So I'm glad that you actually made a comment that really sort of made me see the bigger picture of what am I doing? You
Yeah.
know?
Well, and it supported both of us. But
Yeah.
Stephen, let's do. We do need to take a commercial break. Let's do that, and stay tuned. Stay with us, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation about traditions. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone. Welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing co host,
Stephen F. Misick, Esquire.
Stephen the Medium, also my husband. And today we're talking about traditions, and we talked about the impact of traditions when they become expectations. But let's talk about, Stephen, where do they come from? Because traditions rarely begin randomly, they often emerge from important human needs, whether it's the need for connection or the need for identity or the need to create meaning during a certain time where we feel some uncertainty. And many traditions begin as a way for families or communities to cope with change, loss, migration, or hardship. And at some point I want to talk about, my family traditions. But for you, Stephen, what is that positive side of traditions?
I love when, if a tradition comes out of, I said this just a couple of minutes ago, if you're with somebody and you're experiencing something, and then one of you says something to the degree of, like, oh my God, we should make this a tradition. Usually that means one of you or not both of you are in the present. You're in the present so much that you are loving what you're doing. There's nothing else that matters. It is so big right now. It's like it feels so good that you want to keep it going. So if it's like once a year, every 6 months, whatever it is, that's where these traditions sort of pop up. And then there's the other traditions that are literally like the La Salette Shrine tradition that are passed down, from family and whatnot. And I think, the positives about traditions and, that you're passing down like shared values, like either whether it's family or friends or memories or history or whatever. But for what I do for a living right now as a medium, one of the things I love about traditions, and I just said this to you, I think earlier this morning or yesterday, like that I did a reading yesterday, and this woman that I was reading, her dad pretty much was doing the entire reading, because he was in spirit, and he brought up Easter, like Easter Sunday, and with like amazing validations, right, about what the color of the dress her daughter was going to wear, which was mauve. I mean, who even says mauve? And I said that, and she looked at me like, "Oh my God, Stephen, that's my daughter's dress," and her daughter is I think 7, 8, something like that. In any case, but in the conversation when I was having with her, we brought up, I just said to her, where are you going Sunday? And she said, this little brunch, me and my mom and my husband and my daughter. And we went there last year. And I said, well, I'm asking because your father just said, make sure you leave a chair open for me. And this was via Zoom. And she looked up at me with this expression. And I'm like, what? I wasn't sure where she was going. And she said, this is our second year at this place. And last year I did that. And I'm like, what? You had a chair open? And she said, and I said in front of everybody, this chair's for you, Daddy. And I'm like, oh my God, that's why he's bringing it up, because you did it last year and he wants you to do it again and make sure that you know that he's present. So when it comes to tradition and keeping people that you've loved that are in spirit alive, I will be a cheerleader for you. I think that is one of the greatest things in the world, is that's what we need to do, is we need to keep, our loved ones here with us, alive and relevant, and just realize, and traditions are the greatest way to make sure you realize that just physically they're not here, every other way they are. And I love that. I love that connection.
I love it too, Stephen. Now, let me say something and perhaps ask you your thoughts, because there are some traditions that, for me anyway, started as positive. So for example, for many years, Stephen, you and I hosted Christmas Eve, right? And
yes,
your mom and your family would come, and if my mom was in town because she lived in Puerto Rico, for many years, she would also come, and my family would come, and it was, I loved it because it was a time where we got together, where we hosted friends, where we laughed, we had fun. But then at some point, it turned into a chore. it turned into, I felt people were just expecting for us to host. I didn't feel a sense of appreciation or often even respected because people, again, they had these expectation that, Stephen and I are hosting and we just show up. And so then it became a negative tradition, and ultimately you and I stopped that tradition. But the question is, how do we pay attention? Because again, something may start really positive and we want to do it. But at what point, how do we pay attention to know, that certain point where it's no longer bringing us joy?
Well, I guess it depends on the tradition. Something like pulling a chair up, like the example I just used, is something very quick. It's for one dinner and it's beautiful, right? I don't think you can go much away from that beauty. I mean, it's just easy, right? Hosting Christmas Eve is a big to-do, right? That's a very, very big deal. And I think, what you just explained, and I lived it with you, right? I think how you go from doing Christmas Eve every year and then feeling like it's expected or there's no appreciation and then you just end it. I think there's always that in between. And answering your question, how do you figure out that's going from positive to negative, is I think the responsibility lies on the people feeling it. So the responsibility
Yes.
relies, it comes back to you and me saying, oh, well, wait a minute. So I'm feeling this way. So how about this? How about next year? We sort of, the people that are coming, we tell them they have to bring a particular side dish or so. And then that's the only really way you're going to know like where everyone's coming from. And if everyone's like, oh, that's a great idea. And it changes the tradition a little bit in a positive way, because it makes you feel like you got something off your chest and you were also heard. But then it also then opens up to somebody may say, not maybe right to you, but say, you know what, I'm not doing that. And then when it comes to Christmas Eve, like saying for whatever reason they can't come, but then you're cutting out the people you don't want there anyway. That's just sort of using you for Christmas Eve, if that makes sense. So
Of
I think,
course.
yeah, I mean, I think it's traditions come with responsibilities and just awareness of just knowing what's happening.
Yes. Now, I on a very positive note, just like you share plenty of traditions with me, those traditions that you've grew up with, come from your family. I also share a huge tradition that I'm really happy that you got time to experience it with my family. You know what that tradition is? This is a test.
Oh, Three Kings.
Oh yeah. See, I knew you would know that. Yes. So traditionally, my entire family, I grew up with a very large family, and Three Kings in Puerto Rico is a big holiday, and we would celebrate it for many, many years in the campo, the house in the country, where my grandparents lived. But then years later, we would just celebrate it at my grandmother's house in the city where she lived. And that was a tradition that brought lots of joy for me. It's a tradition that I was so happy and proud to be able to share with you. And then when my mom died, that tradition died, Steven. We try to keep it, but for some reason, it wasn't meant to.
You mean your grandmother died?
My grandmother died, excuse me. But you're right, because she was the matriarch of the family.
Right.
So after she died, I don't think it was meant for all of us to keep the tradition. What do you think about? I mean, given that you speak to spirit, you speak to the dead people, is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, no, absolutely, of course, because I think your grandmother, Mama Tata.
Yes.
Yeah, I could just really go off on a beautiful story I have, but none of your family's too thrilled with it because you just know why, right? Because I met Mama Tata, and she just fell in love with me, and I fell in love with her, and They have the Cintron wine that was from the family, and I got a little bottle. And Elix's cousins always say, I've never even seen a bottle, and you have one. I'm like, yeah.
Eva Milagros, every time she hears that story, she rolls her eyes like, oh my God, for real. She never even saw a bottle herself. Neither did I, by the way, just for the record. I only saw it when she literally handed it to Steven. But again, the fact that you were part of that tradition that was so meaningful to me as a young boy, and it's just awesome. But I really do feel, Stephen, that with her passing, the family tried, and it was fine, but it was never the same. And I just believe that it was never the same because it was not meant to. That tradition was meant to stop with her.
Yeah, I mean, you asked me that question about spirit and whatnot, and I just had to go off on my tangent because I'm very proud of mine and Mama Tata's relationship when I first met her. I will always keep that story with me. But to answer your question, yeah, I mean, when Mama Tata died, the energy, the vibration, the dynamics changed because she was it. And I think for I agree with you, Elix. I think that it wasn't the factors weren't there anymore to keep that tradition going for a variety of reasons. I think there's some people underneath Mama Tata and your family that just couldn't bear to do it without Mama Tata because of the loss, maybe, or like her kids, like your dad and whoever else, and then others that if I'm not told like we have to do it, I'm not doing it anymore. So I think there's a lot of different people and different ways that they thought about that, but I think that tradition was there for a particular time and reason. And boy, like you said, if you were able to be part of that, what a special tradition that was.
I agree. And talking about special traditions, I think the one that we need to honor right now is the fact that we need to take a commercial break, Steven. So
Sure.
let's do that and stay with us. If you want to call us, 508-222-1320, you can definitely join the conversation. But hang in there. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone. Welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elex. I'm your host, Coach Elex, and with me, my amazing husband and co host,
Stephen the Medium.
And today we are talking about traditions. And as a piggyback to the conversation in our last segment, Stephen, how do we choose traditions consciously? Because the truth is, traditions do not have to remain fixed. They evolve. They can grow as we grow, and we can honor where we come from while also creating new ways of connecting that reflect who we are today and how we also change. Some traditions are worth keeping, some are worth redefining, and some may choose, to change, who we are and how we go about it. So, having said that, Stephen, what is a way to think about choosing the traditions intentionally?
I think one of the things that people should always keep in mind when you're choosing a particular tradition, which is sort of like an oxymoron because it's a tradition that you're doing, but always remembering that a tradition doesn't have to be exactly the same every single time you do it. There can be, there can be changes to it. I mean, like a recipe, right? That you've got a recipe from your grandmother who's in spirit now, and maybe you got it from your mom got it from her mom, and now it's down to you, and your mom added something or changed something, and so did you. So the tradition of making something to either feel like you're bettering it, or you just, you want to do something more for your liking in that food scenario, but also still at the baseline, you're still honoring your grandmother because that was her recipe, or your great-great-grandmother, however it works. So I think that's a lesson I learned, is that a tradition, like you just said to me earlier at the beginning of the show with the whole La Salette Shrine thing, that I'm really tired. I don't want to go tonight because I'm really tired, but I can go another night. And right there is like, well, yeah, I mean, it's still going to La Salette Shrine in this season, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Thanksgiving night. So having that sort of flexibility, and like you asked also, Elix, being aware of, is a tradition, just like people coming in and out of your life, is this tradition supposed to be there forever, or is it supposed to be here for a particular reason and then sort of just dismantle?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And what I would add to that, Stephen, is my own personal practice is asking myself, am I choosing meaning? Am I choosing to do something out of the meaning behind the tradition? Or am I choosing to do it because of the obligation that I feel for the tradition? Because I think that if I answer that honestly and authentically, then that will lead me to, yeah, this is something I definitely want to do. And also, like you said, Stephen, being open to allowing ourselves to have the tradition also evolve. It doesn't need to look the same way all the time. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying here?
Yeah, I mean that's the flexibility I talked about. That a tradition, yes, the word tradition is meaning that you're doing something every certain period of time, but within that bubble, there can definitely be some factors that change.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Stephen, from a spiritual perspective, given your connection to people who have passed, when somebody is holding on to a tradition because that's what they've learned, that's what the family carried, say, for example, my grandmother, right? In spirit, what if, say my father was hell-bent in keeping the tradition because she would be upset? What would she be saying to dad or to any of, her kids about the tradition?
Yeah, I mean, her perspective would be certainly not the perspective of your dad. That's an earthly thing, just like we talked about traditions this whole show, right? That's more of like me holding the torch. Oh, I've got to do it because of the family. I have to do it, and that's I mean, I understand that it's normal, it's human to do that, but when we get into spirit, all in that particular scenario you just brought up, Mama Tata, which is all she would care about is making sure the family is in the best place, that they're the most joyful, they're happiest, and it's for her. If it happened, wonderful. If it doesn't happen, oh, wonderful. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It was what she's looking at is what she gave this family, and whatever the family, because she loves everyone, wants to do, whatever works for them. That's all she cares about.
Yeah, and that attachment comes from, it's ego based, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you talk often about letting go of the ego, and how when we give power to our ego, it often lead us to a sense of not satisfied, dissatisfaction, unhappiness, and all of that stuff in life. So how can somebody check in and let go of that ego in that real moment, in real time, if you will, Stephen? What would you suggest?
I think being aware again, being aware of sort of what you said earlier, Elix, of just being aware of the circumstances, the surroundings, and what the tradition is actually giving you and everybody else that's part of it. I mean, it's just really sort of dissecting the tradition and seeing. And sometimes, you may have, like, you're a parent and you've been doing something with one of your kids or all of your kids every year. And, there's sometimes you're like, the parent may be tired or work or whatever, but they're still going to do it for the kids, right? So it's just, it's a balance, and it's also just being aware of what the tradition, you don't want to lose the meaning of the tradition. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. Meaning versus obligation.
Yes.
And I also I think that oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought, but had to do with Jews. Oh man, I lost my train of thought. So go ahead, Stephen. Add something else.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, so there's, I think every single experience, like I just talked about with parents with kids, is different, right? It's very unique, and there's reasons for it too. Every time for many years we go to Puerto Rico, like I have created, the tradition is we get to Puerto Rico, we get the rent-a-car, and we go to España. It's this little cafe that I love because the pastries are so good, the sandwiches, all the food's so good, especially the coffee, right? I'm a coffee person, so we go there, and I'm very proud of snapping pictures and knowing that's the tradition. So I think the last time we went, I don't know why, but we didn't go there. And again,
we didn't go there because it was impractical to go there.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And I reminded you, I'm like, why will we go do something that's not practical at this moment? We can do that tomorrow.
And I was good, and that's part of the being aware and the flexibility of, we'll still hit España. It doesn't change. Just it doesn't get lessened because we're not there the first day. Even if we go the second, third, or fourth day, we're going to España. After all, we go there always, and the experience is great, and we're going to get there. So it doesn't have to necessarily be dictated on that first day.
Yeah, and I just remember what I wanted to say. It was a point that you made. We are often so attached to these rules that are, I think you call them earthly rules.
Yes.
And and they're rules that we've made up. That in spirit, none of that means anything. And I think we just have to remind ourselves, it doesn't mean anything. You can change something. It can evolve, and you don't. Again, it's that attachment that that we often, that comes from that ego that leads us to keep on doing traditions that really don't serve us and haven't served you in a long time.
I agree.
So with that said, Stephen, we've reached the top of the hour. This was an awesome conversation. But let people know how they can get a hold of you.
Stephen the Medium, StephenTheMedium.com, and Stephen the Medium throughout all of social media.
Yeah, and you can get a hold of me at Coach Helix anywhere on social media. Before we go, I wanted to do a shout out to our producer, Mark Clark. I hope he's listening. He should be listening. He better be listening because he's, probably just, playing games in his iPad right now. But he's at the hospital recovering, doing actually quite well. He's in rehab now, and we wish Mark a speedy recovery.
And also thank the young, handsome gentleman who's producing our show today. It's Jim, right?
With beautiful feet. That would be Dave Angel, the man with the deep voice that you hear in the commercials.
Oh, shoot. I thought it was Jim. Oh,
yeah.
That's right. It's Dave. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you. And listen, if you celebrate Easter, happy Easter to all of you. Otherwise, we'll see you next week, next Friday, same time, same place. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.